This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome everyone to a special The Light and the Splendor event in honor of the Yom Tif of Chanukah and in honor of the Sefer, The Light and the Splendor. Actually now, ArtScroll is offering 20% off on all of our humble Svarim. You could get The Light and the Splendor at artscroll.com, The Mystery and the Majesty, The Revealed and the Concealed on Purim, and The Darkness and the Dawn on the 3 weeks on Tisha B'Av. They're all 20% off. Tonight's event is dedicated to the Yom Tif of Chanukah in honor of the Sefer, The Light and the Splendor. I want to thank the hosts of tonight's event, Chazak. I want to thank my dear friends, Rav Ilan Meirav, Rav Yaniv Meirav, Rabbi Abov, for hosting tonight's event at Chazak. Whatever you could do to help out Chazak, especially in helping enroll public school children in yeshivos. Now is the time of the year where the Yevanim, they try to make us forget the Torah. They wanted lahashkicham Torasecha, lahavira mechukei ritzonecha. And in our times as well, the forces of evil, the education system of the culture that we live in, is making great attempts. Lahashkicham Torasecha, lahavira mechukei ritzonecha. So whatever you could do to support Chazak and help them enroll these holy neshamas into yeshivos, it's hatzalas nefashos. You're creating doiros v'loikeach nefashos chacham. So whatever you could do to help out Chazak, tavay aleichem bracha. Tonight's event is sponsored by Chickens for Shabbos. Go to the Yad Eliezer site and please click the icon for agunos, almanos, malamdim. Please help out those in Klal Yisrael that need it most, those who we are most responsible for. Without the malamdim, without the rabbeim for our children, then we don't have the next generation. So please, again, go to the Yad Eliezer site. Please click the icon for agunos, almanos, and malamdim, and you can have a chelek in supporting those in Klal Yisrael who need it most. All the money goes directly to help these families that are really dependent on it. So, at this special event, I want to discuss what is probably the most well-known question in the entire gamut of Jewish literature. This is the question that is attributed to the Beis Yosef. Actually, it was asked by Rishonim before the Beis Yosef. It's found in the Sefer HaEshkol. And that is, why is Chanukah celebrated for 8 days? After all, the Gemara tells us that the Yevanim contaminated all the oil in the Heichal, and when the Chashmonaim returned to the Beis Hamikdash, they searched for pure oil, and they found one flask of oil that had enough oil to last for 1 night, and miraculously it lasted for 8 nights. So simple mathematics tells us that there were 7 days of a miracle. The miracle was needed for the oil to burn for an additional 7 days. Why then do we celebrate Chanukah for 8 days when the miracle only continued for 7 days? This is a question that scholars and students have pondered since the very inception of the Yom Tif of Chanukah. Why celebrate 8 days when only 7 days was miraculous? And many, many answers have been offered to this question. There's an amazing sefer called Ner Lameya that offers 100 answers to this question, and recently a sefer has been published with 500 answers to this question. One of the most well-known and widely used answers is, to my humble opinion, the most difficult. This answer is given by the Alter of Kelm, and the Alter of Kelm, in his Sefer Chachma Umusar, in Siman Samach Aleph, page Kuf Chav Ches to Kuf Chav Tes, he brings the following answer based on the story of the daughter of Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa. Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was very poor, and his household had to subsist on very meager provisions. One Friday night after Shabbos had already entered, so Rabbi Chanina noticed that his daughter was crying. He said, "My daughter, Farvos veinst du, why are you crying?" And she said, Tata, I used vinegar in the Shabbos Lecht. I used vinegar instead of oil. They're going to definitely go out very soon. They are not going to burn. They're not going to light. And Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa says, don't worry, don't sweat it. Misha amar l'shemen v'yadlik, hu yarmel ha'chometz v'yadlik. He who said that oil should burn, he can also say vinegar should burn. Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was uttering the fundamental principle that the fact that olive oil burns and can be used as fuel is no less miraculous than if vinegar would burn. It's just we're accustomed to the fact that olive oil always burns, and we're not accustomed to vinegar burning. So we call it nature, and we take it for granted, and we assume that that's what happens. But fundamentally, it is not any less miraculous for olive oil to burn than for vinegar to burn. Says the Alter of Kelm, since we have this great idea and great teaching that nature is at its root just as miraculous as the supernatural, we have 7 days of Chanukah to celebrate the miraculous burning of the oil for an additional 7 days. After all, there was only enough oil to last for one night. But we tack on an extra day. And that is to teach that even the first day was a miracle. The fact that oil burns, period, is miraculous. We're used to it, we're accustomed to it, we expect it, we take it for granted, but it is no less supernatural and miraculous. And therefore we have 7 days to celebrate what we consider supernatural, and from there it's supposed to give us insight that even the fact that oil burned on the first day is likewise equally miraculous. Rav Moshe Feinstein in the Darash Moshe Chelek Beis, page Chaf Beis, also gives the same answer of the Alter of Kelm. And he uses this answer of the Alter of Kelm to answer a difficulty in the Al Hanisim. If you look in the Al Hanisim, we talk about the military victory. No mention is made at all about the oil. Nowhere is it mentioned that which the Gemara tells us that they found only enough oil to last for 1 day and it burned for 8 days. The only thing we say in the Al Hanisim is v'hidliku neiros b'chatzos kochecha. They lit candles, they lit lamps. Says Rav Moshe, with the same approach to the Alter of Kelm, the objective of the supernatural miracle of Chanukah is to come to the recognition that that which we are accustomed to and we call teva is no less miraculous. So we say v'hidliku neiros to teach, to indicate that the lighting of a ner is just as worthy of celebration. The fact that Hashem created a process that the juice of an olive could burn and create fuel, provide fuel, that is equally wondrous and miraculous. So this idea that the supernatural is supposed to give us insight, that even nature is miraculous, it was really written and penned by the Ramban many centuries earlier. The Ramban writes, famously at the end of Parshas Boy, the Ramban writes his immortal words, Umin hanisim hagedolim hamiforsamim. From the great and obvious miracles, Adam moideh banisim hanastarim, a person comes to recognize hidden miracles. Shehem yisoid haTorah kula, they are the very foundation of the whole Torah. She'ein la'adam chelek b'Torahs Moshe Rabbeinu, for a person does not have a share in the Torah of Moshe. Ad shenamen, until we believe that b'chol devareinu, that all of our matters, umikreinu, and all of our happenings, shakulam nisim, they're all miraculous. Ein bahem teva, there's no nature, uminhagay shalaylam. All the phenomena, all the processes that we're familiar with, and we could name them, we could predict them: evaporation, respiration, digestion, circulation. The fact that we have a name for them and that we're accustomed to them does not make it any less miraculous. So the purpose of the open miracle of the oil was to come to recognize and to teach that even the fact that oil burns, period, is a miracle. This deductive reasoning, this inference, Says Rav David Cohn, explains the phraseology in the Pismain, Yevanim nikbetzu alai. Say, Yevanim nikbetzu alai, the Yevanim gathered upon me. Azai bimei chashmanim, in the times of the Chashmanaim. Ufartzu choimois migdalai, they breached the walls of my towers. V'timu kashmanim, they contaminated all the oil. But uminoisar kankanim, from the leftover jugs. Nasa neisa shoshanim, a miracle occurred for Klal Yisrael, called the Shoshanim. B'nei bina, men of deep understanding, of deduction. Yemei shmoina, 8 days, kavu shiur urananim, they enacted song and music and praise. Says Rav David Cohn, why do we refer to Klal Yisrael in the times of Chanukah as B'nei Bina, men of understanding, men of deduction, men of inference? Says Rav David Cohn, because really Chanukah should have been 7 days. Like the Beis Yosef asks, that the oil burning was only miraculous for 7 days. But Klal Yisrael used deductive reasoning, lahavin davar mitaych davar, and they said, yes, it was supernatural that this oil, which did not have the requisite amount, still burned for an additional 7 days. But from there we need to come to realize that even teva, what we call nature, what we label a name, what we could predict, that itself is miraculous. So b'nei bina, men of understanding, yemei shmoina, for 8 days kavu shiur ananim. The reason why Chanukah is 8 days is because they utilized bina, they utilized understanding, they utilized deduction. Now, I was always bothered by this approach of the Alter of Kelm and Ramosha. Certainly it is true, certainly it is a fact, it is a tenet of Judaism, as Ramban says, that from open miracles we need to come to recognize and understand and appreciate that nature is also miraculous, and therefore not only do we celebrate 7 days of the miraculous burning of the fire, but we also celebrate the fact that fire burns, period. But what does this got to do with Chanukah? I mean, this seems like a very underhanded answer to the question. Is this a very satisfying answer? I mean, we could utilize this idea and teaching really for any Yom Tif. What does it have to do with Chanukah? Why don't we have 8 days of Pesach, 7 days that the Jewish people who didn't have time to let their bread rise, and they had what to eat, and an 8th day for the fact that Hashem gives food in general? Or we should have 9 days of Sukkot. We should have the first part of Sukkot to celebrate the miracle of Anani HaKavod, and then another day of Sukkot to celebrate that we have a house over our heads. Why don't we have an extra day to celebrate the splitting of the sea? We should have 1 day to celebrate the splitting of the sea, and another day to celebrate the miracle of water in general. Yes, we understand the purpose of the open miracle is to recognize and to have emunah in the hidden miracle, in the concealed, in the what we call teva. But why now? Why do we dafka, appendage, and tack on an extra day of Chanukah to all of a sudden celebrate the idea of teva being a miracle as well? But dear friends, herein lies the very secret of Chanukah. A very basic element of the mystical dimensions of the Torah is that there are 10 spheros, 10 divine manifestations with which Hashem created and runs the world. The names of the spheros are Kesar, Chachma, Bina, Chesed or Gedula, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid, Yesoid, Malchus. The Gemara in Chagiga Daf Yud Beis quotes Rav Zutra Bar Tovia, who quotes Rav, who says, Ba'asara ma'amaros nivra ha'olam. Hashem created the world with 10 statements. The Marsha understands that this is referring to the 10 spheros with which Hashem created and runs the world. Now, the subject of the 10 Sfiros is the quintessential example of an esoteric teaching of the Torah that is misunderstood and is liable for distortion. The most important thing we need to know is they are not physical manifestations, heaven forbid, of God, but rather emanations or manifestations of the divine. Now, each Sfira, each divine emanation, is associated with a particular Yom Tif. Chanukah is associated with Hoid. Reb Chaim Friedlander explains the midah of Hoid comes to fruition and is expressed fully to its full capacity on the Yom Tif of Chanukah. Certainly these are very deep concepts. Let's try to explain it and understand it in accordance with our capacity. Okay, before we do that, we're going to take a brief moment to remind everyone that this year is dedicated by the very worthy organization Chickens for Shabbos, who are dedicated to feed our nation's neediest and those who we are responsible to help the most. Almanos, agunos, families of malamdim, families who really need it most. And whether it's providing food or other needs of the family or tutoring or other basic necessities in order for the family to function and in order for the children to grow up happy and healthy. So if you want to make the children of Hashem happy, please go to the Yad Eliezer website, click the icon for Agunos, Almanos, Malamdim, and please help those in Klal Yisrael who need it most. And we wish all of your families only bracha v'hatzlacha, good health, and may Hashem provide you with all of your needs, berevach. Now that we learned that the midah of Hoid comes to fruition on Chanukah, the Chidah teaches that this gives us additional insight as to why Chanukah is 8 days. After all, the Sfiros are Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid. Hoid is the 8th midah. So since Hoid is the 8th midah, Chanukah, the day that Hoid comes to fruition, is 8 days long. Now, what exactly is Hoid? In Lashon HaKodesh, there are two words that seem synonymous. These words are Hoid and Hadar. For example, Hoid v'Hadar lefanav, Oiz v'Chedva b'Mekaymai, Divrei Hayamim Aleph, Parak Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yud Zayin. There are Achroinim who maintain that there are synonyms in Lashon HaKodesh. Shemois Nirdafim. The Malbim, however, Rav Meir Yechiel ben Rav Meir Leibush ben Yechiel Michal, the great Poisek, the Artzos HaChaim, the great commentator on the Tanakh, the Beis Halevi writes that there are certain psukim in Tanakh that nobody was able to explain other than the Malbim, and the Malbim explained it, Baruch HaKodesh. One of the great principles of the Malbim is that there are no Shemois Nerdafim in Lashon HaKodesh. There are no synonyms. Every word has a precise nuance of difference and meaning. Here's a prime example. Says the Malbim, Hoid and Hadar. And the Malbim writes this in many places. He writes this in the Sefer HaKarmel. The Malbim writes this in Parshas Kedoshim, Islam Ches, in Sefer Malachim, in Parshas Pinchas, Perek Chav Zayin, Pasuk Ches. The Malbim says there is a fundamental difference between Hoid and Hadar. Hadar refers to external beauty, attractive appearance, shape. Hadar. An esrog is called pre-eitz hadar. It has shape, it has color, it has bumps. These are characteristic of external beauty. We say beroiv am, with an abundance of people. Hadras melech, it brings beauty to the king. Hadar refers to external beauty. There are many people who, on the other hand, do not have objective beauty. Their outer appearance or presentation is not appealing, is not that pleasant, but they have an inner beauty to them. Perhaps because of their humility, or their wisdom, or their good character, it lends them an air of beauty. It's not external, but some kind of internal splendor that comes from their very essence. That is called Hoid. Hoid is Ziv Panimi, inner splendor. Now, Hoid and Hadar are not just concepts that refer to the physical universe, where Hadar is the external beauty of something, and Hoid is its internal splendor. But Hoid and Hadar are really two outlooks on life in general. The world can be seen in two lights. One could look at others, at events, and see the outside, the superficial way that it seems. One could look at another human being and judge them based on their objective appearance, their hygiene, their cleanliness, and the way they're formed, groomed. This was the worldview of the Yevanim. The Yevanim glorified the human body. Bodybuilding, body sculpting, muscle tone. They were the way that a person is judged. And they look therefore at the phenomena of the universe in the exact same way. The Yevanim believed that this world, what you see is what you get. What you could measure, what you could weigh, what you could study, what you could see, what you could computate, what you could calculate. That's the world. That's the externalities of the world. The Ramban writes in Torah Hashem Tamim on page 147, muzzle the mouths of the wise men of nature who follow the ideology of the Greeks. They deny anything that cannot be experienced by the senses. However, this was not the approach of the Jewish people. The Jewish people look at the world and they say, just because somebody's appearance is not objectively appealing, that doesn't diminish from the beauty the person has, because we value the midos of the soul. What maybe you can't put your finger on. Humility, yiras shamayim, wisdom, the soul qualities. The Jewish people judge another person not by their objective look, but by intangible qualities that another person may have. Their midos toivos, their good character lends a certain aura and air of internal splendor that shines forth from the soul. But we don't only look at people in that vein, we look at events that transpire in the same vein. We don't just say, well, there's certain laws of politics or science, evaporation, condensation, precipitation. We don't say, well, when there's enough moisture in the atmosphere, so then the moisture condenses, and when the wind blows, it blows the clouds on the dry land, and that's when it rains. No, we believe that there's an inner splendor, an inner working to the universe. We believe that when a person arrives timely to tefillah, and davens with kavanah, and has the right thoughts when putting on talis and tefillin, that affects the ecosystem, that affects the economy. So while Yavan believes the economy has hard, fast, and set rules, we believe that there's an inner mechanics of the world. It's dependent on our deeds, on our actions, that the Rebbeinu Shalom controls through the guise of nature in a supernatural way all the laws of the universe. We believe, as the Ramban says, Kulam nisim ein bahem teva u'minhagoy shalaylam. We believe there's no such thing as nature. Nature's a facade. Nature's a veil. We don't believe that it automatically rains. We don't believe that there's certain patterns that just repeat themselves. No, we believe that even though we can't see it and we can't measure it and we can't calculate it and we can't computate it, Our tefillah controls the security of our people and the world. Our tefillahs control the economy. Our limud Torah controls our welfare. That's the hoid of the universe. The hoid of Hashgacha is not Teva. Teva is Hadar, the external shell of this world. We believe in hoid. We're a people of hoid. We're a people who believe that there's an inner mystical quality in the way that the world runs through the Hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The battle between Yavan and Yisrael is the battle between hoid and Hadar, between Teva and Nes. And therefore the entire purpose of Chanukah is through the open miracle to come to the realization that there is no Teva, that even the hidden miracles are miraculous. That's the whole purpose of Chanukah. The whole function of Chanukah is to debunk Yavan, who believes only in Hadar. We believe that through Hadar we have to come to Hoid. We believe that through the open miracle, the entire purpose of open miracles is to come to the recognition of Mi Sha'amar L'Shemen V'Yidlaik Hu Yoymar L'Chaymetz V'Yidlaik. The whole purpose of Chanukah is that through the 7 miraculous days of the oil burning, we come to the recognition that the fact that oil burns, period, is a miracle. The Vilna Gaon writes that the midah of hoid comes from the word haida, gratitude. And in the context of what we are presenting, it is so illuminating. Often a person is resistant to having gratitude to Hashem. What should I have gratitude to Hashem for? Because I make a parnasa? Of course I make a parnasa. I went to school, I went to college, I got a degree, I worked hard, I schwitzed, I put in the work, so of course I make 6 figures. That's how the world works. When people work hard, when people study, when people learn a trade, and then people roll up their sleeves and they go out to work, and they work a long day, they make the money, they bring home the cash. I have to have gratitude? That's the way the world works. Why do I have to have gratitude that I have a family? I got married, that's what happens when you get married, you have children. And when you go to work, you buy a car and you have a house. That's the way the world works. In a world of superficiality, in a world where we just look at the externalities and we say, well, this is the world, the way the world works. In a world of Hadar, there's no gratitude. Ingratitude abounds. Because when a person looks at the world as everything is a natural process, then we have expectations. This is the way things ought to be. Then gratitude abounds. But we are not a nation of Hadar. We are a nation of Hoid. We believe that just because I planted doesn't automatically mean something will grow. It's only because of the great kindness of the Creator and Guide of the universe that He has blessed me with crops. That's why I have the great bounty of a fruitful produce. Yes, I got married, but who helped me find my wife? Yes, I got married, but it's only with great rachamei shamayim that Hashem in His infinite mercy has blessed me with children. Yes, I go to work, but many people go to work and it just doesn't materialize. So Hashem in His infinite kindness has bestowed me a livelihood. When we look at the world as Hadar, Teva, natural processes, this is the way the world operates, this is the way things go, then we're ungrateful. There's ingratitude. But somebody who lives in a world of Haid, where we don't look at the way things seem to be, but we recognize that there is an inner working of this universe, which is guided divinely by the hand of Hashem, who provides us in His kindness, in His mercy, in His rachamim. That's where Haida comes from. Of course, Haida is an expression of the midah of Haid, because in a world where we appreciate that we can't take anything for granted, even the fact that shemen lights That's a miracle. Everything in my life is a miracle. It's a miracle that I have clothing. It's a miracle that I'm able to see. It's a miracle I could hear these words of Torah. It's a miracle that Hashem blessed me that I can understand beautiful Torah thoughts. It's a miracle I have a chair to sit on. It's a miracle that I have a family. It's a miracle that I have livelihood. From the Sphira of Hod emanates the great characteristic of Haidah. Chanukah is when the Midah of Hod comes to fruition, and therefore Chanukah is designated Lahoidais Ulahalel. And therefore I thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts about the Sefer, the light and the splendor. And the reason why it's called the light and the splendor is, as we mentioned, that the purpose of the 7 miraculous days of Chanukah is to appreciate the inner splendor of the miracle of Chanukah. And that is the miracle that oil can burn in general. This is not tangential to Chanukah. This is the very essence of Chanukah. As the Ramban says, this is the essence of all miracles. Umin hanisim, hagedolim, hameforsamim, adam moida, benisim nestarim. The whole purpose of Chanukah is a b'nei vina, with understanding and deductive reasoning, Yemei Shmoina, Kavu Shiur Urinanim. And therefore I thank you for listening. To purchase this Sefer, please go to artscroll.com, where this Sefer, as well as the other Sfarim, the Concealed and the Revealed, on Purim, the Mystery and the Majesty, on the Yomim Noraim, the Darkness and the Dawn, on the 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av, are all available 20% off. Also, there's a brand new Sefer in Lashon HaKodesh on Sefer Shemais, published by Ale Zayis. You could get it at our site, rabbidg.com. It's available with free shipping. It's over 700 pages of new ideas on Sefer Shemais. Be'ezus Hashem, I hope everybody enjoys. I want to thank Chazak for hosting tonight's pre-Chanukah Matzoi Shabbos event in honor of the new Sefer. I thank my dear friends, Rabbi Yaniv Meirav, Rabbi Ilan Meirav, Rabbi Abaf, for hosting and arranging tonight's event. And of course, for tonight's sponsors, Chickens for Shabbos. Please go to the Yad Eliezer site and click the icon for Melamdim. By the way, the Magen Avram brings down Minhag Yisrael is to be Mefarnes, the Melamdim, on Chanukah. So you could be Mekayim, a family in Klal Yisrael that are supporting and enhancing and enabling our families. Please go to the Yad Eliezer site, click the icon for Melamdim, Agunais, Almanois. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless you and your family with good health, Parnasa Berevach, Nachas from your children, Vimale Hashem, Kol Meshalois, Libchem L'Toiva, wishing everyone a good Tavach, and Be'ezus Hashem, a Freilichen Chanukah. Thank you very much.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.